ਵੈਲਕਮ ਟੂ ਦਿਸ ਐਪੀਸੋਡ ਆਫ ਦਾ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ੋ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਆਏ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਥੈਰੇਪਿਊਟਿਕ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਥੈਰੇਪਿਊਟਿਕ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕੌਣ ਨੇ, ਇਹ ਕੀ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੋਈ ਮੈਂਟਲ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਨੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਦਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਸੋ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਮੇਦਰ ਦਾ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ। Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to start with, you are a registered therapeutic counselor.
Yes, I am.
What does that mean? What kind of work is involved in this kind of therapy?
The registered therapeutic counselor is a designation.
Okay.
So you can get different kinds of designations like registered clinical counselors and other ones. But we work with people with mental health.
Okay.
Helping people overcome things like anxieties, addictions, trauma, depression, lots of emotional and mental issues, and
right.
even if there's certain behaviors that people have, obviously there's an underlying cause to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we work with clients and couples groups just to help people find out what it is that's causing them to do what they do,
right.
and then to help them overcome what it is that has caused that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can further substantiate on this point, because I have talked to a lot of clinical counselors who have been coming to the program, but you're the first one who's a therapeutic counselor.
Yes.
So when we talk, what is the difference between the other counseling and the kind of counseling you provide?
We actually do the same kind of counseling.
Okay.
It's just the designation is the initials.
Okay.
And the actual education level.
Right.
But the actual work we do is the same.
Right.
So if you were to see a registered therapeutic counselor, if you saw me working with another counselor, you'd see us working exactly the same way.
Okay. So how long you have been working as a therapeutic counselor?
As a therapeutic counselor, it's been about 3 years.
Okay.
But I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist, and I've been doing that since 2009.
Okay.
So that involves a lot of therapy as well. So really, I've got about 10 years of experience.
Oh, that's wonderful.
In just working with clients.
So when you talk about people having mental issues, over the years of your experience being in this field, what are you finding? What are the major reasons which are coming forward as a counselor, what you feel that people are going through? And that is why the incidence of people who are falling in this category is increasing over the years.
Mental health has so many different aspects to it. It's not just one. It can be anything from just stress, from just your everyday life, going down to some pretty serious illnesses.
Right.
Such as bipolar disorder or borderline personality, schizophrenia. That's what people think of when they think of mental health. But it can be anything from stress upwards, anything that can cause you to feel down, depressed, slow you down. Anything that puts you out of balance to what you normally would feel or what your body would normally feel.
Okay.
A lot of it is fear, a lot of fear, a lot of shame from the past of things that have happened. And they are usually some of the most underlying things that we find come up for most people.
Okay. So Gurjit, in your number of years in practice, what reasons are you finding when people come to you and talk to you? Probably is it just the family environment or pressure from work, or overall in the society what we are finding is that people have now started coming forward and talking about these things. So what is your observation regarding this?
So from my experience, I've actually kind of leaned towards trauma.
Okay.
So people that I see, I'll see people with any kind of issues, but with trauma, it's based on childhood issues.
Okay.
Any kind of abuse, and sometimes abuse is considered something very physical, extreme, violent, but abuse is not that way. It can be a series of events of just being put down by parents, siblings, teachers, environment at schools, but it normally starts at a young age.
Okay.
And what happens is because it's not worked through or not addressed, and typically that's because the people around you or at that age are not sure how to deal with it themselves. So it gets left unaddressed, and it festers and it grows. So the more stress you take on, then it becomes, if you get into relationships with other people, marriage, children, work, schooling, and it can go from there. It basically just compounds over and over until finally something happens when someone says, okay, something's not right here, or an addiction takes place, or certain behaviors take place, and then it needs to be addressed.
So generally, we have a thinking that when we talk about trauma, that you talked about, it's not just the physical abuse; it can be of any kind of pressure on you.
That's
So
right.
could you please elaborate on this? That when you say in childhood only, as you grow, the things implanted in your mind in childhood continue even afterwards also.
Absolutely.
So what kind of other pressures do you think that people go through that in their childhood years they might have faced, and that further on when they become adults it comes out?
Other than, you mean, the physical?
Yeah.
There is a lot of the mental issues and the emotional issues. If there's a lot of pressure on them from parents to do certain things, if they want to go into a direction they don't want to go in, and you could have a child that wants to be an artist or a
Right.
musician, and then they're being pressured to go and get their degree in a doctorate or something like that.
Right.
It can start from there. It can start from a child being told to be silent, to be quiet, not to listen,
Right.
or being told they're not listening, and being disciplined even verbally. That can make them feel like they're just not good enough.
Okay.
What I find is, in the experience I have, it's a lack of self-worth.
Okay.
And that comes from being told you're not good enough, or you can't do what you want to do,
Right.
or you're a bad person, or you don't listen, and it just goes on. And typically, as a child, the parents, the uncles, aunts, grandparents, caregivers,
Right.
they're going through their own stresses, and they
Right.
don't know how to deal with their own. And then, because they can't release it anywhere else, they take it out on the child unintentionally.
Okay, and that unintentional work of the parents is having an impact on the child.
Absolutely.
And if it is not looked into at the right time, it can lead to disastrous results also.
Yes.
Okay.
And childhood can be anything from literally from toddler
Right.
all the way up to teenagers. So there's no set age here.
Right.
But you know what? They say a child's personality is pretty much developed by the age of 5.
Okay.
And children know a lot more than we give them credit for. They see more.
Okay.
They understand a lot more than we give them credit for. And through my work as a hypnotherapist as well, it really does prove that you are aware of absolutely everything, even from birth.
Okay.
And it can be remembered.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll talk to you on hypnotherapy in
Later.
one other session.
Okay.
But focusing on this, as you said, the childhood trauma makes a lot of difference.
Yes.
Irrespective of the communities we belong to, but this trend of increasing mental illnesses is across the spectrum. It is
Yes.
increasing.
Yeah.
So because you look, you work with the mainstream as well as the Indo-Canadian parents and other people also. What is your observation? Do you find that our upbringing is a little different than the mainstream, or why is it that in our community also now we are finding that there are a lot more instances where people are coming up with such issues? So we'll talk about this issue after this short break.
Okay.
For close to 50 years, Simpson Thomas has had the privilege of serving members of the Indo-Canadian community, the victims of car accidents.
ਆਰਡਰ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਨਮਾਨਿਤ ਬਰਨੀ ਸਿੰਪਸਨ ਦੇ ਤਜਰਬੇ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗੱਡੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਐਕਸੀਡੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਪੀੜਤ ਲੋਅਰ ਮੇਨਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਸੱਲੀਬਖਸ਼ ਸਲਾਹ ਤੇ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਲੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਕਸਦ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਇੰਜਰੀ ਲਈ ICBC ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਮੁਆਵਜ਼ਾ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਦੇਣ ਦਾ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਹੀ ਫੋਨ ਕਰੋ 6046898888।
Soon the ICBC will be implementing legislation which will severely affect your rights to get a just settlement. We'll be there for you.
Once again, welcome back to the program. ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਮੇਦਰ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਥੈਰੇਪਿਊਟਿਕ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਨੇ। ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਰਜਿਸਟਰਡ ਥੈਰੇਪਿਊਟਿਕ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇਹ ਥੋੜਾ ਡਿਗ ਡੀਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਟਰਾਮੇ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਲੋਕ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਬਚਪਨ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਟਰੀਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਅਬਿਊਜ਼ ਸਿਰਫ ਫਿਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਬਲਕਿ ਇਮੋਸ਼ਨਲ ਵੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੇਖਭਾਲ ਹੈਗੀ ਏ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਕੁਝ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਿਤ ਕਰਦੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਜਾਂ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਸੀ ਉਹਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਪੈ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਮੈਂਟਲ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਕਿਉਂ ਵੱਧ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ, ਇਸ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ, ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਆਓ ਇਸ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਗੁਰਜੀਤ ਮੇਦਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। So before the break, as I was asking you that across the spectrum, why do you think, or I would ask you first, before asking you why, what difference do you find in the upbringing of the Indo-Canadian parents and the mainstream parents? Is it the same, or there are some separate issues what you confront and face?
There are definitely separate issues because
Okay.
it's just a different culture.
Right.
We have a fairly distinct culture. There's a lot of pressure to conform within the culture. One thing I find quite is quite widespread within our culture is the fear of what other people think, the judgments.
Okay.
You know, what will such and such think, and what will your family think, and and a lot of pressure on parents and the adults is about looking good.
Right.
And again, sometimes this is unintentional because this is what's come down through generations. But I find that's one of the biggest things, and what that does is puts pressure on the children to be a certain way or to achieve a certain thing.
Right.
And if they do something that's not considered right in the culture, there's a lot of pressure, and maybe more pressure than they would be if that pressure wasn't on parents and the adults as well. The other thing also is the discrepancy between the male and the female role,
Right.
which is still very big. You know, these days you do see a lot of women that are starting to become a lot more independent. This day in any culture, both parents need to work.
Right.
You know, financially to support
Oh,
the
yeah.
home and support parents and the children. So that's a lot of stress unto itself. But the woman does tend to take on a lot more of the role in the home, not just working full time,
Okay.
but taking care of the kids, taking care of the home, taking care of the in-laws and parents.
Right.
That kind of falls a lot on the females, and that hasn't really changed across generations,
Right.
and it still happens. But I think nowadays women are starting to see there's a lot more available to them here,
Right.
say in Canada, than there was before. So they can start getting that independence a little bit more, and that tends to put a lot of stress on the male and on the parents.
Right.
So that, you know, there's a lot of things that can really add to that. East Indian culture, it has a lot of addiction,
Okay.
alcoholism.
Oh, yeah, that's a major
especially
issue.
in the, I mean, there are women that have alcoholism, but there's primarily the males that have alcoholism.
Right.
Any kind of addiction is a way of numbing yourself to something that's going on internally. It's seen as normal, and that is where it can start, because now drugs are so prolific,
Oh, yeah.
and they become part of it. If the alcohol is not doing it, then the drugs. But it's also to remember that addictions include things like food, gambling, shopping, sex. It can be anything.
But still, it's a stigma. Still, nobody wants to accept it. And especially in our community, we still consider mental issues to be like it used to be the previous thought. Am I right in saying this, that still it is considered to be a taboo, or people are now coming forward and have started discussing on these issues?
It's still a stigma.
Okay.
It really is. When people think of mental health and going to seek help, it makes them feel they're being weak, that they can't do it themselves, or
Right.
seen as weak, or seen as that they've got a problem when they don't want to have a problem. There are women primarily are the ones that come forward.
Right.
I would say we have a much larger proportion of women that come to seek help than men. But
Still
men
are
still
Holding on to their emotions. Yeah.
Exactly,
Right.
and you know it's a male thing to be strong and just hold and not show, not cry or
Right.
do anything like that. But that's what's hiding those emotions, not allowing them to come out, because they don't go anywhere. They
Right.
just stay in the body, and eventually they will come out as disease, because your body can just not hold that any longer.
Right. So the sooner you come forward, the better it'll be.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to take guidance from you, where can they call you?
They can call me. The company I work with is Suenta Health.
Okay.
At www.suentahealth.com. I also work with Moving Forward Family Services in Surrey, and I can be reached through their website or through their phone number. And my phone number is area code 236-999-2750, which is a Vancouver number as well.
Great. Gurjit, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you. And best
Thank you for your
wishes.
time. Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.